A Farewell to Arms. By Ernest Hemingway. Chapter 1. In the late summer of that year we lived in a house in a village that looked across the river and the plain to the mountains. In the bed of the river there were pebbles and boulders, dry and white in the sun, and the water was clear and swiftly moving and blue in the channels. Troops went by the house and down the road, and the dust they raised powdered the leaves of the trees. The trunks of the trees too were dusty, and the leaves fell early that year, and we saw the troops marching along the road and the dust rising and leaves, stirred by the breeze, falling, and the soldiers marching, and afterward the road bare and white except for the leaves. The plain was rich with crops, there were many orchards of fruit trees, and beyond the plain the mountains were brown and bare. There was fighting in the mountains, and at night we could see the flashes from the artillery. In the dark it was like summer lightning, but the nights were cool and there was not the feeling of a storm coming. Sometimes in the dark we heard the troops marching under the window and guns going past pulled by motor tractors. There was much traffic at night, and many mules on the roads with boxes of ammunition on each side of their pack saddles, and gray motor trucks that carried men, and other trucks with loads covered with canvas that moved slower in the traffic. There were big guns too that passed in the day drawn by tractors, the long barrels of the guns covered with green branches and green leafy branches and vines laid over the tractors. To the north we could look across a valley and see a forest of chestnut trees, and behind it another mountain on this side of the river. There was fighting for that mountain too, but it was not successful, and in the fall when the rains came the leaves all fell from the chestnut trees and the branches were bare and the trunks black with rain. The vineyards were thin and bare-branched too, and all the country wet and brown and dead with the autumn. There were mists over the river and clouds on the mountain, and the trucks splashed mud on the road, and the troops were muddy and wet in their capes, their rifles were wet, and under their capes the 2 leather cartridge boxes on the front of the belts, gray leather boxes heavy with the packs of clips of thin, long 6.5 mm cartridges, bulged forward under the capes so that the men, passing on the road, marched as though they were 6 months gone with child. There were small gray motor cars that passed going very fast. Usually there was an officer on the seat with the driver and more officers in the back seat. They splashed more mud than the camions even, and if one of the officers in the back was very small and sitting between 2 generals, he himself so small that you could not see his face but only the top of his cap and his narrow back, and if the car went especially fast it was probably the king. He lived in Udine and came out in this way nearly every day to see how things were going, and things went very badly. At the start of the winter came the permanent rain, and with the rain came the cholera. But it was checked, and in the end only 7,000 died of it in the army. Chapter 2. The next year there were many victories. The mountain that was beyond the valley and the hillside where the chestnut forest grew was captured, and there were victories beyond the plain on the plateau to the south, and we crossed the river in August and lived in a house in Gorizia that had a fountain and many thick shady trees and a walled garden and a wisteria vine purple on the side of the house. Now the fighting was in the next mountains beyond and was not a mile away. The town was very nice and our house was very fine. The river ran behind us, and the town had been captured very handsomely, but the mountains beyond it could not be taken, and I was very glad the Austrians seemed to want to come back to the town some time, if the war should end, because they did not bombard it to destroy it but only a little in a military way. People lived on in it, and there were hospitals and cafes and artillery up side streets and 2 body houses, one for troops and one for officers, and with the end of the summer, the cool nights, the fighting in the mountains beyond the town, the shell-marked iron of the railway bridge, the smashed tunnel by the river where the fighting had been, the trees around the square and the long avenue of trees that led to the square, these with there being girls in the town, the king passing in his motor car, sometimes now seeing his face and little long-necked body and gray beard like a goat's chin tuft, all these with the sudden interiors of houses that had lost a wall through shelling, with plaster and rubble in their gardens and sometimes in the street, and the whole thing going well on the car, so made the fall very different from the last fall when we had been in the country. The war was changed too. The forest of oak trees on the mountain beyond the town was gone. The forest had been green in the summer when we had come into the town, but now there were the stumps and the broken trunks and the ground torn up, and one day at the end of the fall when I was out where the oak forest had been I saw a cloud coming over the mountain. It came very fast and the sun went a dull yellow and then everything was gray and the sky was covered and the cloud came on down the mountain and suddenly we were in it and it was snow. The snow slanted across the wind, the bare ground was covered, the stumps of trees projected, there was snow on the guns and there were paths in the snow going back to the latrines behind trenches. Later, below in the town, I watched the snow falling, looking out of the window of the body house, the house for officers, where I sat with a friend and 2 glasses drinking a bottle of Asti, and, looking out at the snow falling slowly and heavily, we knew it was all over for that year. Up the river the mountains had not been taken, none of the mountains beyond the river had been taken. That was all left for next year. My friend saw the priest from our mess going by in the street, walking carefully in the slush, and pounded on the window to attract his attention. The priest looked up. He saw us and smiled. My friend motioned for him to come in. The priest shook his head and went on. That night in the mess after the spaghetti course, which everyone ate very quickly and seriously, lifting the spaghetti on the fork until the loose strands hung clear, then lowering it into the mouth, or else using a continuous lift and sucking into the mouth, helping ourselves to wine from the grass-covered gallon flask. It swung in a metal cradle and you pulled the neck of the flask down with the forefinger and the wine, clear red, tannic and lovely, poured out into the glass held with the same hand. After this course, the captain commenced picking on the priest. The priest was young and blushed easily and wore a uniform like the rest of us but with a cross in dark red velvet above the left breast pocket of his grey tunic. The captain spoke pidgin Italian for my doubtful benefit, in order that I might understand perfectly, that nothing should be lost. Priest today with girls, the captain said looking at the priest and at me. The priest smiled and blushed and shook his head. This captain baited him often. Not true? Asked the captain. Today I see priest with girls. No, said the priest. The other officers were amused at the baiting. Priest not with girls, went on the captain. Priest never with girls, he explained to me. He took my glass and filled it, looking at my eyes all the time, but not losing sight of the priest. Priest every night 5 against 1. Everyone at the table laughed. You understand? Priest every night 5 against 1. He made a gesture and laughed loudly. The priest accepted it as a joke. The Pope wants the Austrians to win the war, the major said. He loves Franz Joseph. That's where the money comes from. I am an atheist. Did you ever read The Black Pig? Asked the lieutenant. I will get you a copy. It was that which shook my faith. It is a filthy and vile book, said the priest. You do not really like it. It is very valuable, said the lieutenant. It tells you about those priests. You will like it, he said to me. I smiled at the priest and he smiled back across the candlelight. Don't you read it, he said. I will get it for you, said the lieutenant. All thinking men are atheists, the major said. I do not believe in the Freemasons, however. I believe in the Freemasons, the lieutenant said. It is a noble organization. Someone came in and as the door opened I could see the snow falling. There will be no more offensive now that the snow has come, I said. Certainly not, said the major. You should go on leave. You should go to Rome, Naples, Sicily. He should visit Amalfi, said the lieutenant. I will write you cards to my family in Amalfi. They will love you like a son. He should go to Palermo. He ought to go to Capri. I would like you to see Abruzzi and visit my family at Capricotta, said the priest. Listen to him talk about the Abruzzi. There's more snow there than here. He doesn't want to see peasants. Let him go to centers of culture and civilization. He should have fine girls. I will give you the addresses of places in Naples. Beautiful young girls, accompanied by their mothers. Ha! 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 The captain spread his hand open, the thumb up and fingers outspread as when you make shadow pictures. There was a shadow from his hand on the wall. He spoke again in pidgin Italian. You go away like this, he pointed to the thumb, and come back like this, he touched the little finger. Everyone laughed. Look, said the captain. He spread the hand again. Again the candle light made its shadows on the wall. He started with the upright thumb and named in their order, dark to the snowline and then white and lovely in the sun. Then, as the road mounted along the ridge, I saw a third range of mountains, higher snow mountains, that looked chalky white and furrowed, with strange plains, and then there were mountains far off beyond all these that you could hardly tell if you really saw. Those were all the Austrians' mountains, and we had nothing like them. Ahead there was a rounded turnoff in the road to the right, and looking down I could see the road dropping through the trees. There were troops on this road and motor trucks and mules with mountain guns, and as we went down, keeping to the side, I could see the river far down below, the line of ties and rails running along it, the old bridge where the railway crossed to the other side and across, under a hill beyond the river, the broken houses of the little town that was to be taken. It was nearly dark when we came down and turned onto the main road that ran beside the river. Chapter 9. The road was crowded and there were screens of cornstalk and straw matting on both sides and matting over the top so that it was like the entrance at a circus or a native village. We drove slowly in this matting-covered tunnel and came out onto a bare cleared space where the railway station had been. The road here was below the level of the river bank, and all along the side of the sunken road there were holes dug in the bank with infantry in them. The sun was going down, and looking up along the bank as we drove I saw the Austrian observation balloons above the hills on the other side dark against the sunset. We parked the cars beyond a brickyard. The ovens and some deep holes had been equipped as dressing stations. There were 3 doctors that I knew. I talked with the major and learned that when it should start and our cars should be loaded we would drive them back along the screened road and up to the main road along the ridge where there would be a post and other cars to clear them. He hoped the road would not jam. It was a one-road show. The road was screened because it was in sight of the Austrians across the river. Here at the brickyard we were sheltered from rifle or machine gun fire by the river bank. There was one smashed bridge across the river. They were going to put over another bridge when the bombardment started and some troops were to cross at the shallows up above at the bend of the river. The major was a little man with upturned mustaches. He had been in the war in Libya and wore 2 wound stripes. He said that if the thing went well he would see that I was decorated. I said I hoped it would go well but that he was too kind. I asked him if there was a big dugout where the drivers could stay and he sent a soldier to show me. I went with him and found the dugout, which was very good. The drivers were pleased with it and I left them there. The major asked me to have a drink with him and 2 other officers. We drank rum and it was very friendly. Outside it was getting dark. I asked what time the attack was to be and they said as soon as it was dark. I went back to the drivers. They were sitting in the dugout talking and when I came in they stopped. I gave them each a package of cigarettes, Macedonias, loosely packed cigarettes that spilled tobacco and needed to have the ends twisted before you smoked them. Manera lit his lighter and passed it around. The lighter was shaped like a Fiat radiator. I told them what I had heard. Why didn't we see the post when we came down? Pacini asked. It was just beyond where we turned off. That road will be a dirty mess, Manera said. They'll shell the out of us. Probably. What about eating, Lieutenant? We won't get a chance to eat after this thing starts. I'll go and see now, I said. You want us to stay here or can we look around? Better stay here. I went back to the major's dugout and he said the field kitchen would be along and the drivers could come and get their stew. He would loan them mess tins if they did not have them. I said I thought they had them. I went back and told the drivers I would get them as soon as the food came. Manera said he hoped it would come before the bombardment started. They were silent until I went out. They were all mechanics and hated the war. I went out to look at the cars and see what was going on and then came back and sat down in the dugout with the 4 drivers. We sat on the ground with our backs against the wall and smoked. Outside it was nearly dark. The earth of the dugout was warm and dry and I let my shoulders back against the wall, sitting on the small of my back, and relaxed. Who goes to the attack? Asked Gavuzzi. Bersaglieri. All Bersaglieri? I think so. There aren't enough troops here for a real attack. It is probably to draw attention from where the real attack will be. Do the men know that who attack? I don't think so. Of course they don't, Manera said. They wouldn't attack if they did. Yes they would, Pacini said. Bersaglieri are fools. They are brave and have good discipline, I said. They are big through the chest by measurement, and healthy. But they are still fools. The Granatieri are tall, Manera said. This was a joke. They all laughed. Were you there, Tenente, when they wouldn't attack and they shot every 10th man? No. It is true. They lined them up afterward and took every 10th man. Carabinieri shot them. Carabinieri, said Pacini and spat on the floor. But those grenadiers, all over 6 feet. They wouldn't attack. If everybody would not attack the war would be over, Manera said. It wasn't that way with the Granatieri. They were afraid. The officers all came from such good families. Some of the officers went alone. A sergeant shot 2 officers who would not get out. Some troops went out. Those that went out were not lined up when they took the 10th men. One of those shot by the Carabinieri is from my town, Pacini said. He was a big smart tall boy to be in the Granatieri. Always in Rome. Always with the girls. Always with the Carabinieri. He laughed. Now they have a guard outside his house with a bayonet and nobody can come to see his mother and father and sisters and his father loses his civil rights and cannot even vote. They are all without law to protect them. Anybody can take their property. If it wasn't that that happens to their families nobody would go to the attack. Yes. Alpini would. These VE soldiers would. Some Bersaglieri. Bersaglieri have run too. Now they try to forget it. You should not let us talk this way, Tenente. Evviva l'esercito, Pacini said sarcastically. I know how you talk, I said. But as long as you drive the cars and behave. And don't talk so other officers can hear, Manera finished. I believe we should get the war over, I said. It would not finish it if one side stopped fighting. It would only be worse if we stopped fighting. It could not be worse, Pacini said respectfully. There is nothing worse than war. Defeat is worse. I do not believe it, Pacini said still respectfully. What is defeat? You go home. They come after you. They take your home. They take your sisters. I don't believe it, Pacini said. They can't do that to everybody. Let everybody defend his home. Let them keep their sisters in the house. They hang you. They come and make you be a soldier again. Not in the auto ambulance, in the infantry. They can't hang everyone. An outside nation can't make you be a soldier, Manera said. At the first battle you all run. Like the Czechos. I think you do not know anything about being conquered and so you think it is not bad. Tenente, Pacini said. We understand you, let us talk. Listen. There is nothing as bad as war. We in the auto ambulance cannot even realize at all how bad it is. When people realize how bad it is they cannot do anything to stop it because they go crazy. There are some people who never realize. There are people who are afraid of their officers. It is with them that war is made. I know it is bad but we must finish it. It doesn't finish. There is no finish to a war. Yes there is. Pacini shook his head. War is not won by victory. What if we take San Gabriele? What if we take the Carso and Monfalcone and Trieste? Where are we then? Did you see all the far mountains today? Do you think we could take all them too? Only if the Austrians stop fighting. One side must stop fighting. Why don't we stop fighting? If they come down into Italy they will get tired and go away. They have their own country. But no, instead there is a war. You're an orator. We think. We read. We are not peasants. We are mechanics. But even the peasants know better than to believe in a war. Everybody hates this war. There is a class that controls a country that is stupid and does not realize anything and never can. That is why we have this war. Also they make money out of it. Most of them don't, said Pacini. They are too stupid. They do it of my dream. I woke for good long before it was light and heard roosters crowing and stayed on awake until it began to be light. I was tired and once it was really light I went back to sleep again. Chapter 14. It was bright sunlight in the room when I woke. I thought I was back at the front and stretched out in bed. My legs hurt me and I looked down at them still in the dirty bandages, and seeing them knew where I was. I reached up for the bell cord and pushed the button. I heard it buzz down the hall and then someone coming on rubber soles along the hall. It was Miss Gage and she looked a little older in the bright sunlight and not so pretty. "Good morning," she said. "Did you have a good night?" "Yes." "Thanks very much," I said. "Can I have a barber?" "I came in to see you and you were asleep with this in the bed with you." She opened the armoire door and held up the vermouth bottle. It was nearly empty. "I put the other bottle from under the bed in there too," she said. "Why didn't you ask me for a glass?" "I thought maybe you wouldn't let me have it." "I'd have had some with you." "You're a fine girl." "It isn't good for you to drink alone," she said. "You mustn't do it." "All right." "Your friend Miss Barkley's come," she said. "Really?" "Yes." "I don't like her." "You will like her. She's awfully nice." She shook her head. "I'm sure she's fine. Can you move just a little to this side?" "That's fine. I'll clean you up for breakfast." She washed me with a cloth and soap and warm water. "Hold your shoulder up," she said. "That's fine. Can I have the barber before breakfast?" "I'll send the porter for him." She went out and came back. "He's gone for him," she said and dipped the cloth she held in the basin of water. The barber came with the porter. He was a man of about 50 with an upturned mustache. Miss Gage was finished with me and went out and the barber lathered my face and shaved. He was very solemn and refrained from talking. "What's the matter? Don't you know any news?" I asked. "What news?" "Any news. What's happened in the town?" "It is time of war," he said. "The enemy's ears are everywhere." I looked up at him. "Please hold your face still," he said and went on shaving. "I will tell nothing." "What's the matter with you?" I asked. "I am an Italian. I will not communicate with the enemy." I let it go at that. If he was crazy, the sooner I could get out from under the razor the better. Once I tried to get a good look at him. "Beware," he said. "The razor is sharp." I paid him when it was over and tipped him half a lira. He returned the coins. "I will not. I am not at the front. But I am an Italian. Get the hell out of here." "With your permission," he said and wrapped his razors in newspaper. He went out leaving the 5 copper coins on the table beside the bed. I rang the bell. Miss Gage came in. "Would you ask the porter to come please?" "All right." The porter came in. He was trying to keep from laughing. "Is that barber crazy?" "No, signorino. He made a mistake. He doesn't understand very well and he thought I said you were an Austrian officer." "Oh," I said. "Ho ho ho," the porter laughed. He was funny. "One move from you," he said, "and he would have." He drew his forefinger across his throat. "Ho ho ho," he tried to keep from laughing. "When I tell him you were not an Austrian." "Ho ho ho." "Ho ho ho," I said bitterly. "How funny if he would cut my throat." "Ho ho ho." "No, signorino. No, no." He was so frightened of an Austrian. "Ho ho ho." "Ho ho ho," I said. "Get out of here." He went out and I heard him laughing in the hall. I heard someone coming down the hallway. I looked toward the door. It was Catherine Barkley. She came in the room and over to the bed. "Hello, darling," she said. She looked fresh and young and very beautiful. I thought I had never seen anyone so beautiful. "Hello," I said. When I saw her I was in love with her. Everything turned over inside of me. She looked toward the door, saw there was no one, then she sat on the side of the bed and leaned over and kissed me. I pulled her down and kissed her and felt her heart beating. "You sweet," I said. "Weren't you wonderful to come here?" "It wasn't very hard." "It may be hard to stay." "You've got to stay," I said. "Oh, you're wonderful." I was crazy about her. I could not believe she was really there and held her tight to me. "You mustn't," she said. "You're not well enough." "Yes, I am." "Come on." "No." "You're not strong enough." "Yes." "I am." "Yes." "Please." "You do love me?" "I really love you." "I'm crazy about you." "Come on please." "Feel our hearts beating." "I don't care about our hearts." "I want you." "I'm just mad about you." "You really love me?" "Don't keep on saying that." "Come on." "Please." "Please, Catherine." "All right, but only for a minute." "All right," I said. "Shut the door." "You can't." "You shouldn't." "Come on." "Don't talk." "Please come on." Catherine sat in a chair by the bed. The door was open into the hall. The wildness was gone and I felt finer than I had ever felt. She asked, "Now do you believe I love you?" "Oh, you're lovely," I said. "You've got to stay. They can't send you away. I'm crazy in love with you. We'll have to be awfully careful." That was just madness. "We can't do that." "We can at night." "We'll have to be awfully careful." "You'll have to be careful in front of other people." "I will." "You'll have to be." "You're sweet." "You do love me, don't you?" "Don't say that again. You don't know what that does to me." "I'll be careful then." "I don't want to do anything more to you." "I have to go now, darling, really." "Come back right away." "I'll come when I can." "Goodbye." "Goodbye, sweet." She went out. God knows I had not wanted to fall in love with her. I had not wanted to fall in love with anyone. But God knows I had, and I lay on the bed in the room of the hospital in Milan and all sorts of things went through my head, but I felt wonderful, and finally Miss Gage came in. "The doctor's coming," she said. "He telephoned from Lake Como." "When does he get here?" "He'll be here this afternoon." Chapter 15. Nothing happened until afternoon. The doctor was a thin, quiet little man who seemed disturbed by the war. He took out a number of small steel splinters from my thighs with delicate and refined distaste. He used a local anesthetic called something or other snow, which froze the tissue and avoided pain until the probe, the scalpel or the forceps got below the frozen portion. The anesthetized area was clearly defined by the patient, and after a time the doctor's fragile delicacy was exhausted and he said it would be better to have an X-ray. Probing was unsatisfactory, he said. The X-ray was taken at the Ospedale Maggiore and the doctor who did it was excitable, efficient and cheerful. It was arranged by holding up the shoulders, that the patient should see personally some of the larger foreign bodies through the machine. The plates were to be sent over. The doctor requested me to write in his pocket notebook, my name and regiment and some sentiment. He declared that the foreign bodies were ugly, nasty, brutal. The Austrians were sons of bitches. How many had I killed? I had not killed any, but I was anxious to please, and I said I had killed plenty. Miss Gage was with me and the doctor put his arm around her and said she was more beautiful than Cleopatra. Did she understand that? Cleopatra, the former queen of Egypt. Yes, by God she was. We returned to the little hospital in the ambulance, and after a while and much lifting I was upstairs and in bed again. The plates came that afternoon. The doctor had said by God he would have them that afternoon, and he did. Catherine Barkley showed them to me. They were in red envelopes, and she took them out of the envelopes and held them up to the light, and we both looked. "That's your right leg," she said, then put the plate back in the envelope. "This is your left." "Put them away," I said, and come over to the bed." "I can't," she said. "I just brought them in for a second to show you." Leather sofas. His boots were smoothly polished dull leather. They were beautiful boots. He said it was all balls. They thought only in divisions and manpower. They all squabbled about divisions and only killed them when they got them. They were all cooked. The Germans won the victories. By God, they were soldiers. The old Hun was a soldier. But they were cooked too. We were all cooked. I asked about Russia. He said they were cooked already. I'd soon see they were cooked. Then the Austrians were cooked too. If they got some Hun divisions, they could do it. Did he think they would attack this fall? Of course they would. The Italians were cooked. Everybody knew they were cooked. The old Hun would come down through the Trentino and cut the railway at Vicenza, and then where would the Italians be? They tried that in 16, I said. Not with Germans. Yes, I said. But they probably wouldn't do that, he said. It was too simple. They'd try something complicated and get royally cooked. I had to go, I said. I had to get back to the hospital. Goodbye, he said. Then cheerily, every sort of luck. There was a great contrast between his world pessimism and personal cheeriness. I stopped at a barber shop and was shaved and went home to the hospital. My leg was as well as it would get for a long time. I had been up for examination 3 days before. There were still some treatments to take before my course at the Ospedale Maggiore was finished, and I walked along the side street practicing not limping. An old man was cutting silhouettes under an arcade. I stopped to watch him. 2 girls were posing and he cut their silhouettes together, snipping very fast and looking at them, his head on one side. The girls were giggling. He showed me the silhouettes before he pasted them on white paper and handed them to the girls. They're beautiful, he said. How about you, Tenante? The girls went away looking at their silhouettes and laughing. They were nice-looking girls. One of them worked in the wine shop across from the hospital. All right, I said. Take your cap off. No. With it on. It will not be so beautiful, the old man said. But, he brightened, it will be more military. He snipped away at the black paper, then separated the 2 thicknesses and pasted the profiles on a card and handed them to me. How much? That's all right. He waved his hand. I just made them for you. Please. I brought out some coppers. For pleasure. No. I did them for a pleasure. Give them to your girl. Many thanks until we meet. Until I see thee. I went on to the hospital. There were some letters, an official one, and some others. I was to have 3 weeks convalescent leave and then return to the front. I read it over carefully. Well, that was that. The convalescent leave started October 4th when my course was finished. 3 weeks was 21 days. That made October 25th. I told them I would not be in and went to the restaurant a little way up the street from the hospital for supper and read my letters and the Corriere della Sera at the table. There was a letter from my grandfather, containing family news, patriotic encouragement, a draft for $200, and a few clippings, a dull letter from the priest at our mess, a letter from a man I knew who was flying with the French and had gotten in with a wild gang and was telling about it, and a note from Rinaldi asking me how long I was going to skulk in Milano and what was all the news. He wanted me to bring him phonograph records and enclosed a list. I drank a small bottle of Chianti with the meal, had a coffee afterward with a glass of cognac, finished the paper, put my letters in my pocket, left the paper on the table with the tip and went out. In my room at the hospital I undressed, put on pajamas and a dressing gown, pulled down the curtains on the door that opened onto the balcony and sitting up in bed read Boston papers from a pile Mrs. Myers had left for her boys at the hospital. The Chicago White Sox were winning the American League pennant and the New York Giants were leading the National League. Babe Ruth was a pitcher then playing for Boston. The papers were dull, the news was local and stale, and the war news was all old. The American news was all training camps. I was glad I wasn't in a training camp. The baseball news was all I could read and I did not have the slightest interest in it. A number of papers together made it impossible to read with interest. It was not very timely, but I read at it for a while. I wondered if America really got into the war, if they would close down the major leagues. They probably wouldn't. There was still racing in Milan and the war could not be much worse. They had stopped racing in France. That was where our horse Japalac came from. Catherine was not due on duty until 9 o'clock. I heard her passing along the floor when she first came on duty and once saw her pass in the hall. She went to several other rooms and finally came into mine. "I'm late, darling," she said. There was a lot to do. "How are you?" I told her about my papers and the leave. "That's lovely," she said. "Where do you want to go?" "Nowhere. I want to stay here." "That's silly. You pick a place to go and I'll come too." "How will you work it?" "I don't know. But I will." "You're pretty wonderful." "No, I'm not. But life isn't hard to manage when you've nothing to lose." "How do you mean?" "Nothing. I was only thinking how small obstacles seemed that once were so big. I should think it might be hard to manage." "No, it won't, darling. If necessary, I'll simply leave. But it won't come to that." "Where should we go?" "I don't care. Anywhere you want. Anywhere we don't know people." "Don't you care where we go?" "No. I'll like any place." She seemed upset and taut. "What's the matter, Catherine?" "Nothing. Nothing's the matter." "Yes, there is." "No, nothing. Really nothing." "I know there is." "Tell me, darling." "You can tell me." "It's nothing." "Tell me." "I don't want to. I'm afraid I'll make you unhappy or worry you." "No, it won't." "You're sure?" "It doesn't worry me, but I'm afraid to worry you." "It won't if it doesn't worry you." "I don't want to tell." "Tell it." "Do I have to?" "Yes. I'm going to have a baby, darling. It's almost 3 months along." "You're not worried, are you?" "Please, please don't." "You mustn't worry." "All right." "Is it all right?" "Of course. I did everything. I took everything, but it didn't make any difference." "I'm not worried. I couldn't help it, darling, and I haven't worried about it." "You mustn't worry or feel badly. I only worry about you." "That's it. That's what you mustn't do. People have babies all the time. Everybody has babies. It's a natural thing. You're pretty wonderful." "No, I'm not. But you mustn't mind, darling. I'll try and not make trouble for you. I know I've made trouble now. But haven't I been a good girl until now?" "You never knew it, did you?" "No. It will all be like that. You simply mustn't worry." "I can see you're worrying." "Stop it. Stop it right away." "Wouldn't you like a drink, darling? I know a drink always makes you feel cheerful." "No. I feel cheerful. And you're pretty wonderful." "No, I'm not. But I'll fix everything to be together if you pick out a place for us to go. It ought to be lovely in October. We'll have a lovely time, darling, and I'll write you every day while you're at the front." "Where will you be?" "I don't know yet. But somewhere splendid. I'll look after all that." We were quiet a while and did not talk. Catherine was sitting on the bed and I was looking at her, but we did not touch each other. We were apart as when someone comes into a room and people are self-conscious. She put out her hand and took mine. "You aren't angry, are you, darling?" "No." "And you don't feel trapped?" "Maybe a little. But not by you." "I didn't mean by me." "You mustn't be stupid. I meant trapped at all. You always feel trapped biologically." She went away a long way without stirring or removing her hand. "Always isn't a pretty word." "I'm sorry." "It's all right. But you see, I've never had a baby and I've never even loved anyone. And I've tried to be the way you wanted, and then you talk about always. I see you when you come back. We'll have a walk and talk together. I walked with him to the door. Don't go down, he said. It is very nice that you are back. Though not so nice for you. He put his hand on my shoulder. It's all right for me, I said. Good night. Good night. Ciao. Ciao. I said. I was deadly sleepy. Chapter 27. I woke when Rinaldi came in, but he did not talk, and I went back to sleep again. In the morning I was dressed and gone before it was light. Rinaldi did not wake when I left. I had not seen the Baincisa before, and it was strange to go up the slope where the Austrians had been, beyond the place on the river where I had been wounded. There was a steep new road and many trucks. Beyond, the road flattened out and I saw woods and steep hills in the mist. There were woods that had been taken quickly and not smashed. Then beyond, where the road was not protected by the hills, it was screened by matting on the sides and over the top. The road ended in a wrecked village. The lines were up beyond. There was much artillery around. The houses were badly smashed, but things were very well organized, and there were signboards everywhere. We found Gino and he got us some coffee, and later I went with him and met various people and saw the posts. Gino said the British cars were working further down the Baincisa at Ravne. He had great admiration for the British. There was still a certain amount of shelling, he said, but not many wounded. There would be many sick now the rains had started. The Austrians were supposed to attack, but he did not believe it. We were supposed to attack too, but they had not brought up any new troops, so he thought that was off too. Food was scarce and he would be glad to get a full meal in Gorizia. What kind of supper had I had? I told him and he said that would be wonderful. He was especially impressed by the dolce. I did not describe it in detail, only said it was a dolce, and I think he believed it was something more elaborate than bread pudding. Did I know where he was going to go? I said I didn't, but that some of the other cars were at Caporetto. He hoped he would go up that way. It was a nice little place and he liked the high mountain hauling up beyond. He was a nice boy and everyone seemed to like him. He said where it really had been hell was at San Gabriele and the attack beyond Lam that had gone bad. He said the Austrians had a great amount of artillery in the woods along Turnover Ridge beyond and above us, and shelled the roads badly at night. There was a battery of naval guns that had gotten on his nerves. I would recognize them because of their flat trajectory. You heard the report and then the shriek commenced almost instantly. They usually fired 2 guns at once, one right after the other, and the fragments from the burst were enormous. He showed me one, a smoothly jagged piece of metal over a foot long. It looked like babbiting metal. I don't suppose they are so effective, Gino said. But they scare me. They all sound as though they came directly for you. There is the boom, then instantly the shriek and burst. What's the use of not being wounded if they scare you to death? He said there were Croats in the lines opposite us now and some Magyars. Our troops were still in the attacking positions. There was no wire to speak of and no place to fall back to if there should be an Austrian attack. There were fine positions for defense along the low mountains that came up out of the plateau, but nothing had been done about organizing them for defense. What did I think about the Baincisa anyway? I had expected it to be flatter, more like a plateau. I had not realized it was so broken up. Alto piano, Gino said, but no piano. We went back to the cellar of the house where he lived. I said I thought a ridge that flattened out on top and had a little depth would be easier and more practical to hold than a succession of small mountains. It was no harder to attack up a mountain than on the level, I argued. That depends on the mountains, he said. Look at San Gabriele. Yes, I said, but where they had trouble was at the top where it was flat. They got up to the top easy enough. Not so easy, he said. Yes, I said, but that was a special case because it was a fortress rather than a mountain, anyway. The Austrians had been fortifying it for years. I meant tactically speaking, in a war where there was some movement, a succession of mountains were nothing to hold as a line because it was too easy to turn them. You should have possible mobility, and a mountain is not very mobile. Also, people always overshoot downhill. If the flank were turned, the best men would be left on the highest mountains. I did not believe in a war in mountains. I had thought about it a lot, I said. You pinched off one mountain and they pinched off another, but when something really started, everyone had to get down off the mountains. What were you going to do if you had a mountain frontier? He asked. I had not worked that out yet, I said, and we both laughed. But, I said, in the old days the Austrians were always whipped in the quadrilateral around Verona. They let them come down onto the plain and whipped them there. Yes, said Gino. But those were Frenchmen, and you can work out military problems clearly when you are fighting in somebody else's country. Yes, I agreed, when it is your own country you cannot use it so scientifically. The Russians did, to trap Napoleon. Yes, but they had plenty of country. If you tried to retreat to trap Napoleon in Italy you would find yourself in Brindisi. A terrible place, said Gino. Have you ever been there? Not to stay. I am a patriot, Gino said. But I cannot love Brindisi or Taranto. Do you love the Beinzisa? I asked. The soil is sacred, he said. But I wish it grew more potatoes. You know, when we came here we found fields of potatoes the Austrians had planted. Has the food really been short? I myself have never had enough to eat, but I am a big eater and I have not starved. The mess is average. The regiments in the line get pretty good food, but those in support don't get so much. Something is wrong somewhere. There should be plenty of food. The dogfish are selling it somewhere else. Yes, they give the battalions in the front line as much as they can, but the ones in back are very short. They have eaten all the Austrians' potatoes and chestnuts from the woods. They ought to feed them better. We are big eaters. I am sure there is plenty of food. It is very bad for the soldiers to be short of food. Have you ever noticed the difference it makes in the way you think? Yes, I said. It can't win a war, but it can lose one. We won't talk about losing. There is enough talk about losing. What has been done this summer cannot have been done in vain. I did not say anything. I was always embarrassed by the words sacred, glorious, and sacrifice, and the expression in vain. We had heard them, sometimes standing in the rain almost out of earshot, so that only the shouted words came through, and had read them, on proclamations that were slapped up by billposters over other proclamations, now for a long time, and I had seen nothing sacred, and the things that were glorious had no glory, and the sacrifices were like the stockyards at Chicago if nothing was done with the meat except to bury it. There were many words that you could not stand to hear, and finally only the names of places had dignity. Certain numbers were the same way and certain dates, and these with the names of the places were all you could say and have them mean anything. Abstract words such as glory, honor, courage, or hallow were obscene beside the concrete names of villages, the numbers of roads, the names of rivers, the numbers of regiments, and the dates. Gino was a patriot, so he said things that separated us sometimes, but he was also a fine boy and I understood his being a patriot. He was born one. He left with Peduzzi in the car to go back to Gorizia. It stormed all that day. The wind drove down the rain and everywhere there was standing water and mud. The plaster of the broken houses was gray and wet. Late in the afternoon the rain stopped, and from out number 2 post I saw the bare wet autumn country with clouds over the tops of the hills and the straw screening over the roads wet and dripping. The sun came out once before it went down and shone on the bare woods beyond the ridge. There were many Austrian guns in the woods on that ridge, but only a few fired. I watched the sudden round puffs of shrapnel smoke in the sky above a broken farmhouse near where the line was, soft puffs with a yellow-white flash in the center. You saw the flash, then heard the crack, then saw the smoke ball distort and thin in the wind. There were many iron shrapnel balls in the rubble of the houses and on the road beside the broken house where the post was, but they did not shell near the post that afternoon. We loaded 2 cars and drove down the road that was screened with wet mats, and the last of the sun came through in the breaks between the strips of mattings. Before we were out on the clear road behind the hill the sun was down. We went on down the clear road, and as it turned a corner into the open and went into the square arched tunnel of matting, the rain started again. The wind rose in the night, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, with the rain coming in sheets, there was a bombardment and the Croatians came over across the mountain. The war is over. Everybody's going home. We're all going home. Come on, Tenante, Piani said. He wanted to get past them. Tenante? Who's a tenante? A basso gli ufficiali. Down with the officers. Piani took me by the arm. I'd better call you by your name, he said. They might try and make trouble. They've shot some officers. We worked up past them. I won't make a report that will make trouble for his family. I went on with our conversation. If the war is over, it makes no difference, Piani said. But I don't believe it's over. It's too good that it should be over. We'll know pretty soon, I said. I don't believe it's over. They all think it's over, but I don't believe it. Viva la pace, a soldier shouted out. We're going home. It would be fine if we all went home, Piani said. Wouldn't you like to go home? Yes. We'll never go. I don't think it's over. Andiamo a casa, a soldier shouted. They throw away their rifles, Piani said. They take them off and drop them down while they're marching. Then they shout. They ought to keep their rifles. They think if they throw away their rifles they can't make them fight. In the dark and the rain, making our way along the side of the road, I could see that many of the troops still had their rifles. They stuck up above the capes. What brigade are you? An officer called out. Brigada di Pace, someone shouted. Peace Brigade. The officer said nothing. What does he say? What does the officer say? Down with the officer. Viva la pace. Come on, Piani said. We passed 2 British ambulances, abandoned in the block of vehicles. They're from Gorizia, Piani said. I know the cars. They got further than we did. They started earlier. I wonder where the drivers are? Up ahead probably. The Germans have stopped outside Udine, I said. These people will all get across the river. Yes, Piani said. That's why I think the war will go on. The Germans could come on, I said. I wonder why they don't come on. I don't know. I don't know anything about this kind of war. They have to wait for their transport, I suppose. I don't know, Piani said. Alone he was much gentler. When he was with the others he was a very rough talker. Are you married, Luigi? You know I am married. Is that why you did not want to be a prisoner? That is one reason. Are you married, Tenante? No. Neither is Bonello. You can't tell anything by a man's being married. But I should think a married man would want to get back to his wife, I said. I would be glad to talk about wives. Yes. How are your feet? They're sore enough. Before daylight we reached the bank of the Tagliamento and followed down along the flooded river to the bridge where all the traffic was crossing. They ought to be able to hold at this river, Piani said. In the dark the flood looked high. The water swirled and it was wide. The wooden bridge was nearly 3/4 of a mile across, and the river, that usually ran in narrow channels in the wide stony bed far below the bridge, was close under the wooden planking. We went along the bank and then worked our way into the crowd that were crossing the bridge. Crossing slowly in the rain a few feet above the flood, pressed tight in the crowd, the box of an artillery caisson just ahead, I looked over the side and watched the river. Now that we could not go our own pace I felt very tired. There was no exhilaration in crossing the bridge. I wondered what it would be like if a plane bombed it in the daytime. Piani, I said. Here I am, Tenante. He was a little ahead in the jam. No one was talking. They were all trying to get across as soon as they could, thinking only of that. We were almost across. At the far end of the bridge there were officers and carabinieri standing on both sides flashing lights. I saw them silhouetted against the skyline. As we came close to them I saw one of the officers point to a man in the column. A carabinier went in after him and came out holding the man by the arm. He took him away from the road. We came almost opposite them. The officers were scrutinizing everyone in the column, sometimes speaking to each other, going forward to flash a light in someone's face. They took someone else out just before we came opposite. I saw the man. He was a lieutenant colonel. I saw the stars in the box on his sleeve as they flashed a light on him. His hair was gray and he was short and fat. The carabinier pulled him in behind the line of officers. As we came opposite, I saw one or two of them look at me. Then one pointed at me and spoke to a carabinier. I saw the carabinier start for me, come through the edge of the column toward me, then felt him take me by the collar. "What's the matter with you?" I said, and hit him in the face. I saw his face under the hat, upturned mustaches, and blood coming down his cheek. Another one dove in toward us. "What's the matter with you?" I said. He did not answer. He was watching a chance to grab me. I put my arm behind me to loosen my pistol. "Don't you know you can't touch an officer?" The other one grabbed me from behind and pulled my arm up so that it twisted in the socket. I turned with him and the other one grabbed me around the neck. I kicked his shins and got my left knee into his groin. "Shoot him if he resists," I heard someone say. "What's the meaning of this?" I tried to shout, but my voice was not very loud. They had me at the side of the road now. "Shoot him if he resists," an officer said. "Take him over back." "Who are you?" "You'll find out." "Who are you?" "Battle police," another officer said. "Why don't you ask me to step over instead of having one of these airplanes grab me?" They did not answer. They did not have to answer. They were battle police. "Take him back there with the others," the first officer said. "You see. He speaks Italian with an accent." "So do you," I said. "Take him back with the others," the first officer said. They took me down behind the line of officers below the road toward a group of people in a field by the river bank. As we walked toward them, shots were fired. I saw flashes of the rifles and heard the reports. We came up to the group. There were 4 officers standing together, with a man in front of them with a carabinier on each side of him. A group of men were standing guarded by carabinieri. 4 other carabinieri stood near the questioning officers, leaning on their carbines. They were wide-hatted carabinieri. The 2 who had me shoved me in with the group waiting to be questioned. I looked at the man the officers were questioning. He was the fat gray-haired little lieutenant colonel they had taken out of the column. The questioners had all the efficiency, coldness, and command of themselves of Italians who are firing and are not being fired on. "Your brigade?" he told them. "Regiment?" he told them. "Why are you not with your regiment?" he told them. "Do you not know that an officer should be with his troops?" He did. That was all. Another officer spoke. "It is you and such as you that have let the barbarians onto the sacred soil of the fatherland." "I beg your pardon," said the lieutenant colonel. "It is because of treachery such as yours that we have lost the fruits of victory." "Have you ever been in a retreat?" the lieutenant colonel asked. "Italy should never retreat." We stood there in the rain and listened to this. We were facing the officers and the prisoner stood in front and a little to one side of us. "If you are going to shoot me," the lieutenant colonel said, "please shoot me at once without further questioning. The questioning is stupid." He made the sign of the cross. The officers spoke together. One wrote something on a pad of paper. "Abandoned his troops, ordered to be shot," he said. 2 carabinieri took the lieutenant colonel to the river bank. He walked in the rain, an old man with his hat off, a carabinier on either side. I did not watch them shoot him, but I heard the shots. They were questioning someone else. This officer too was separated from his troops. He was not allowed to make an explanation. He cried when they read the sentence from the pad of paper, and they were questioning another when they shot him. They made a point of being intent on questioning the next man while the man who had been questioned before was being shot. In this way there was obviously nothing they could do about it. I did not know whether I should wait to be questioned or make a break now. I was obviously a German in Italian uniform. I saw how their minds worked, if they had minds and if they worked. They were all young men and they were saving their country. The Second Army was crazy? No. Then please hurry, darling, and get dressed so we can start. She sat up on the side of the bed. She was still sleepy. Is that the barman in the bathroom? Yes. Then I won't wash. Please look the other way, darling, and I'll be dressed in just a minute. I saw her white back as she took off her nightgown and then I looked away because she wanted me to. She was beginning to be a little big with the child and she did not want me to see her. I dressed hearing the rain on the windows. I did not have much to put in my bag. There's plenty of room in my bag, Cat, if you need any. I'm almost packed, she said. Darling, I'm awfully stupid, but why is the barman in the bathroom? He's waiting to take our bags down. He's awfully nice. He's an old friend, I said. I nearly sent him some pipe tobacco once. I looked out the open window at the dark night. I could not see the lake, only the dark and the rain, but the wind was quieter. I'm ready, darling, Catherine said. All right. I went to the bathroom door. Here are the bags, Emilio, I said. The barman took the 2 bags. You're very good to help us, Catherine said. That's nothing, lady, the barman said. I'm glad to help you just so I don't get in trouble myself. Listen, he said to me. I'll take these out the servants' stairs and to the boat. You just go out as though you were going for a walk. It's a lovely night for a walk, Catherine said. It's a bad night all right. I'm glad I've an umbrella, Catherine said. We walked down the hall and down the wide, thickly carpeted stairs. At the foot of the stairs by the door the porter sat behind his desk. He looked surprised at seeing us. You're not going out, sir, he said. Yes, I said. We're going to see the storm along the lake. Haven't you got an umbrella, sir? No, I said. This coat sheds water. He looked at it doubtfully. I'll get you an umbrella, sir, he said. He went away and came back with a big umbrella. It is a little big, sir, he said. I gave him a 10-lira note. Oh, you are too good, sir. Thank you very much, he said. He held the door open and we went out into the rain. He smiled at Catherine and she smiled at him. Don't stay out in the storm, he said. You will get wet, sir and lady. He was only the second porter, and his English was still literally translated. We'll be back, I said. We walked down the path under the giant umbrella and out through the dark wet gardens to the road and across the road to the trellised pathway along the lake. The wind was blowing offshore now. It was a cold, wet November wind and I knew it was snowing in the mountains. We came along past the chained boats and the slips along the quay to where the barman's boat should be. The water was dark against the stone. The barman stepped out from beside the row of trees. The bags are in the boat, he said. I want to pay you for the boat, I said. How much money have you? Not so much. You send me the money later. That will be all right. How much? What you want? Tell me how much. If you get through, send me 500 francs. You won't mind that if you get through. All right. Here are sandwiches. He handed me a package. Everything there was in the bar. It's all here. This is a bottle of brandy and a bottle of wine. I put them in my bag. Let me pay you for those. All right, give me 50 lire. I gave it to him. The brandy is good, he said. You don't need to be afraid to give it to your lady. She'd better get in the boat. He held the boat, it rising and falling against the stone wall, and I helped Catherine in. She sat in the stern and pulled her cape around her. You know where to go? Up the lake. You know how far? Past Luino. Past Luino, Caniro, Cannobio, Tranzano. You aren't in Switzerland until you come to Bersago. You have to pass Monte Tamara. What time is it? Catherine asked. It's only 11 o'clock, I said. If you row all the time you ought to be there by 7 o'clock in the morning. Is it that far? It's 35 kilometers. How should we go? In this rain we need a compass. No. Row to Isola Bella. Then on the other side of Isola Madre go with the wind. The wind will take you to Palanza. You will see the lights. Then go up the shore. Maybe the wind will change. No, he said. This wind will blow like this for 3 days. It comes straight down from the Matterhorn. There is a can to bail with. Let me pay you something for the boat now. No, I'd rather take a chance. If you get through you pay me all you can. All right. I don't think you'll get drowned. That's good. Go with the wind up the lake. All right. I stepped in the boat. Did you leave the money for the hotel? Yes. In an envelope in the room. All right. Good luck, Tenante. Good luck. We thank you many times. You won't thank me if you get drowned. What does he say? Catherine asked. He says good luck. Good luck, Catherine said. Thank you very much. Are you ready? Yes. He bent down and shoved us off. I dug at the water with the oars, then waved one hand. The barman waved back deprecatingly. I saw the lights of the hotel and rowed out, rowing straight out until they were out of sight. There was quite a sea running, but we were going with the wind. Chapter 37. I rowed in the dark, keeping the wind in my face. The rain had stopped and only came occasionally in gusts. It was very dark, and the wind was cold. I could see Catherine in the stern, but I could not see the water where the blades of the oars dipped. The oars were long and there were no leathers to keep them from slipping out. I pulled, raised, leaned forward, found the water, dipped and pulled, rowing as easily as I could. I did not feather the oars because the wind was with us. I knew my hands would blister and I wanted to delay it as long as I could. The boat was light and rowed easily. I pulled it along in the dark water. I could not see, and hoped we would soon come opposite Palanza. We never saw Palanza. The wind was blowing up the lake and we passed the point that hides Palanza in the dark and never saw the lights. When we finally saw some lights much further up the lake and close to the shore it was Intra. But for a long time we did not see any lights, nor did we see the shore but rowed steadily in the dark riding with the waves. Sometimes I missed the water with the oars in the dark as a wave lifted the boat. It was quite rough, but I kept on rowing, until suddenly we were close ashore against a point of rock that rose beside us, the waves striking against it, rushing high up, then falling back. I pulled hard on the right oar and backed water with the other and we went out into the lake again. The point was out of sight and we were going on up the lake. We're across the lake, I said to Catherine. Weren't we going to see Palanza? We've missed it. How are you, darling? I'm fine. I could take the oars a while. No, I'm fine. Poor Ferguson, Catherine said. In the morning she'll come to the hotel and find we're gone. I'm not worrying so much about that, I said, as about getting into the Swiss part of the lake before it's daylight and the custom guards see us. Is it a long way? It's 30-some kilometers from here. I rowed all night. Finally my hands were so sore I could hardly close them over the oars. We were nearly smashed up on the shore several times. I kept fairly close to the shore because I was afraid of getting lost on the lake and losing time. Sometimes we were so close we could see a row of trees and the road along the shore with the mountains behind. The rain stopped and the wind drove the clouds so that the moon shone through, and looking back I could see the long dark point of Castagnola and the lake with white caps, and beyond, the moon on the high snow mountains. Then the clouds came over the moon again and the mountains and the lake were gone, but it was much lighter than it had been before and we could see the shore. I could see it too clearly and pulled out where they would not see the boat if there were custom guards along the Palanza road. When the moon came out again we could see white villas on the shore on the slopes of the mountain and the white road where it showed through the trees. All the time I was rowing. The lake widened, and across it on the shore at the foot of the mountains on the other side we saw a few lights that should be Luino. I saw a wedge-like gap between the mountains on the other shore, and I thought that must be Luino. If it was, we were making good time. I pulled in the oars and lay back on the seat. I was very, very tired of rowing. Go to the hospital then, the doctor said. I will dress and go there right away myself. I hung up and called the garage near the station to send up a taxi. No one answered the phone for a long time. Then I finally got a man who promised to send up a taxi at once. Catherine was dressing. Her bag was all packed with the things she would need at the hospital and the baby things. Outside in the hall I rang for the elevator. There was no answer. I went downstairs. There was no one downstairs except the night watchman. I brought the elevator up myself, put Catherine's bag in it, she stepped in and we went down. The night watchman opened the door for us and we sat outside on the stone slabs beside the stairs down to the driveway and waited for the taxi. The night was clear and the stars were out. Catherine was very excited. I'm so glad it started, she said. Now in a little while it will be all over. You're a good brave girl. I'm not afraid. I wish the taxi would come, though. We heard it coming up the street and saw its headlights. It turned into the driveway and I helped Catherine in and the driver put the bag up in front. Drive to the hospital, I said. We went out of the driveway and started up the hill. At the hospital we went in and I carried the bag. There was a woman at the desk who wrote down Catherine's name, age, address, relatives, and religion, in a book. She said she had no religion and the woman drew a line in the space after that word. She gave her name as Catherine Henry. I will take you up to your room, she said. We went up in an elevator. The woman stopped it and we stepped out and followed her down a hall. Catherine held tight to my arm. This is the room, the woman said. Will you please undress and get into bed? Here is a nightgown for you to wear. I have a nightgown, Catherine said. It is better for you to wear this nightgown, the woman said. I went outside and sat on a chair in the hallway. You can come in now, the woman said from the doorway. Catherine was lying in the narrow bed wearing a plain, square-cut nightgown that looked as though it were made of rough sheeting. She smiled at me. I'm having fine pains now, she said. The woman was holding her wrist and timing the pains with a watch. That was a big one, Catherine said. I saw it on her face. Where's the doctor? I asked the woman. He's lying down sleeping. He will be here when he is needed. I must do something for Madam, now, the nurse said. Would you please step out again? I went out into the hall. It was a bare hall with 2 windows and closed doors all down the corridor. It smelled of hospital. I sat on the chair and looked at the floor and prayed for Catherine. You can come in, the nurse said. I went in. Hello, darling, Catherine said. How is it? They are coming quite often now. Her face drew up. Then she smiled. That was a real one. Do you want to put your hand on my back again, nurse? If it helps you, the nurse said. You go away, darling, Catherine said. Go out and get something to eat. I may do this for a long time, the nurse says. The first labor is usually protracted, the nurse said. Please go out and get something to eat, Catherine said. I'm fine, really. I'll stay a while, I said. The pains came quite regularly, then slackened off. Catherine was very excited. When the pains were bad she called them good ones. When they started to fall off she was disappointed and ashamed. You go out, darling, she said. I think you are just making me self-conscious. Her face tied up. There. That was better. I so want to be a good wife and have this child without any foolishness. Please go and get some breakfast, darling, and then come back. I won't miss you. Nurse is splendid to me. You have plenty of time for breakfast, the nurse said. I'll go then. Goodbye, sweet. Goodbye, Catherine said, and have a fine breakfast for me too. Where can I get breakfast? I asked the nurse. There's a cafe down the street at the square, she said. It should be open now. Outside it was getting light. I walked down the empty street to the cafe. There was a light in the window. I went in and stood at the zinc bar, and an old man served me a glass of white wine and a brioche. The brioche was yesterday's. I dipped it in the wine and then drank a glass of coffee. What do you do at this hour? The old man asked. My wife is in labor at the hospital. So. I wish you good luck. Give me another glass of wine. He poured it from the bottle, slopping it over a little so some ran down on the zinc. I drank this glass, paid and went out. Outside along the street were the refuse cans from the houses waiting for the collector. A dog was nosing at one of the cans. What do you want? I asked and looked in the can to see if there was anything I could pull out for him. There was nothing on top but coffee grounds, dust, and some dead flowers. There isn't anything, dog, I said. The dog crossed the street. I went up the stairs in the hospital to the floor Catherine was on and down the hall to her room. I knocked on the door. There was no answer. I opened the door. The room was empty, except for Catherine's bag on a chair and her dressing gown hanging on a hook on the wall. I went out and down the hall, looking for somebody. I found a nurse. Where is Madame Henry? A lady has just gone to the delivery room. Where is it? I will show you. She took me down to the end of the hall. The door of the room was partly open. I could see Catherine lying on a table, covered by a sheet. The nurse was on one side and the doctor stood on the other side of the table beside some cylinders. The doctor held a rubber mask attached to a tube in one hand. I will give you a gown and you can go in, the nurse said. Come in here, please. She put a white gown on me and pinned it at the neck and back with a safety pin. Now you can go in, she said. I went into the room. Hello, darling, Catherine said in a strained voice. I'm not doing much. You are Mr. Henry? The doctor asked. Yes. How is everything going, doctor? Things are going very well, the doctor said. We came in here where it is easy to give gas for the pains. I want it now, Catherine said. The doctor placed the rubber mask over her face and turned a dial, and I watched Catherine breathing deeply and rapidly. Then she pushed the mask away. The doctor shut off the petcock. That wasn't a very big one. I had a very big one a while ago. The doctor made me go clear out, didn't you, doctor? Her voice was strange. It rose on the word doctor. The doctor smiled. I want it again, Catherine said. She held the rubber tight to her face and breathed fast. I heard her moaning a little. Then she pulled the mask away and smiled. That was a big one, she said. That was a very big one. Don't you worry, darling. You go away. Go have another breakfast. I'll stay, I said. We had gone to the hospital about 3 o'clock in the morning. At noon Catherine was still in the delivery room. The pains had slackened again. She looked very tired and worn now, but she was still cheerful. I'm not any good, darling, she said. I'm so sorry. I thought I would do it very easily. Now, there's one. She reached out her hand for the mask and held it over her face. The doctor moved the dial and watched her. In a little while it was over. It wasn't much, Catherine said. She smiled. I'm a fool about the gas. It's wonderful. We'll get some for the home, I said. There one comes, Catherine said quickly. The doctor turned the dial and looked at his watch. What is the interval now? I asked. About a minute. Don't you want lunch? I will have something pretty soon, he said. You must have something to eat, doctor, Catherine said. I'm so sorry I go on so long. Couldn't my husband give me the gas? If you wish, the doctor said. You turn it to the numeral 2. I see, I said. There was a marker on a dial that turned with a handle. I want it now, Catherine said. She held the mask tight to her face. I turned the dial to number 2, and when Catherine put down the mask I turned it off. It was very good of the doctor to let me do something. Did you do it, darling? Catherine asked. She stroked my wrist. Sure. You're so lovely. She was a little drunk from the gas. I will eat from a tray in the next room, the doctor